This is the Baseball Tonight podcast for Friday, February 27, 2026, and today will be better than yesterday. I'm Buster Olney, living the hotel life in Tampa, Florida. Taylor Schwenk is back in the Schwenk Studios. Taylor, how you doing?
Buster, doing well. Getting ready. We've got WBC murmurs about some of the guys that are about to join us. They're going to see some teams play. They're going to see some players. I'm excited to bring that into the show here.
Yeah, Alden, González, Jorge, Castillo cover baseball for ESPN. Join us for the top of the first. Good to see you guys. I thought you were going to see you in Bristol this week, but that snowstorm interrupted us.
Unfortunately, Buster, I had to miss it and instead be in this nice 75-degree weather in Southern California. So not feeling terrible about it.
Really?
I'm in New York, so we still got it. We still got it here down in New York. So
yeah, Jorge doesn't want to hear it. You don't want to hear that down in Tampa it's at 70 degrees. All right, top of the first, let's hit on the topics of the day. One, Max Scherzer signs with the Toronto Blue Jays. $3 million base. Guys, I thought when Tony Vitello, who's a good friend from his college days, got that job with the Giants, I thought eventually he would wind up back with the Giants and back with Tony. What'd you think, Jorge?
yeah, I thought the same thing. They're best friends, or as close to best friends as possible, from what I understand. So I was shocked when that it didn't happen right away. I thought that Scherzer was the kind of guy, and maybe this is going to happen with the Blue Jays, that he can sign like later on and just maybe show up sometime in the summer for the Giants. But going back to the Blue Jays was a surprise to me. But hey, things happen. Maybe it just wasn't a fit there. Ultimately, Buster Posey's making the decision there, not the manager. So he ends up in Toronto, and I'm surprised by it.
Alden, what'd you think?
I think it's a good fit. I mean, I agree. I did think that there was a good chance that he'd go to San Francisco, but Max Scherzer expressed this during the World Series. He felt really comfortable with the Blue Jays, and he wanted to go back to a franchise that he was comfortable with, that his family was comfortable with. They liked being in Toronto. And I think this made sense for the Blue Jays, too. And we started hearing for a few weeks that this was kind of inevitable that Max Scherzer will go back there. One was Shane Bieber, concerned about his forearm, not knowing where that's going to lead. He's not really off a mound yet. The other one, Bowden Francis, losing him to Tommy John surgery. So I think they just needed extra sort of rotation depth. And you look at Max Scherzer's contract, it's that $3 million guarantee, but I'm told he's got a lot of incentives, too, in terms of innings pitched. It's going to be interesting to see how many of those he reaches. Because as you guys said, as Jorge touched on, he might still start late. They're not going to rush him to be ready by opening day. They got 5 starters ready to go for the start of the season. So they're going to slow play him in spring training. He'll be there around May, probably maybe June, and hope to help out down the stretch.
Did you guys see the letter that his daughter wrote to the Blue Jays during the offseason? His
awesome.
wife posted this. Pretty cool. If anyone hasn't seen it, his daughter Brooke wrote this letter to the Blue Jays back in December. And it was at the beginning, she writes, "Dear Blue Jays, I'm so sorry you didn't win the World Series. I hope you win next time. I hope my dad is back with the team." At the end, signing it, "Love, Max Scherzer's daughter."
See,
Buster, if I had known that, I would have thought he would have gone to Toronto in December. I didn't know that. I didn't know that till like yesterday. So today, whenever that letter came out. So
Tony
Yeah,
Vitello can't compete with that, Buster.
yeah, I know.
Right, I know, exactly. And it certainly gave some, talk about ruining your dad's negotiation leverage. We loved it there. Oh, that was so cool that she did that. And you're right about the incentives. I've seen it broken down that basically I think the threshold is like at 65 innings. He gets, he's $3 million base up to that point. And then for every 10 innings after that, he gets another $1 million. So, I mean, at this stage in his career, it seems like, and given the injuries he had in recent years, Jorge, it feels like the perfect way, I think, if you're the Blue Jays, to design a deal for a 41-year-old future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, last year he pitched 85 innings, so he would have gotten, I think, $1 million. So it's $1 million at 65, $1 million at 75, $1 million at 85, all the way up in 10-inning increments through 155. So he would have gotten $3 extra million last year. And I think that's sort of the neighborhood I think you can kind of expect from Max Scherzer at this point. Maybe around 100 innings, probably less. He's old. He's old for baseball. He's an older man, so you can't expect too much from him. But the way he showed up down the stretch in October for the Blue Jays was huge. Alden touched on it. He was comfortable there. teammates seem to really like enjoy having him around, having his veteran presence, his knowledge, his wisdom, everything. You know, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a future Hall of Famer. So, yeah, I think this structure was good for someone like Max Scherzer, who's going to go in and he's going to help on the field and off.
And Buster, just if they weren't any more tied to the hip than they already have been throughout their careers, if Max Scherzer hits all of his incentives, he will make $13 million. How much did Justin Verlander sign for with the Tigers? $13 million. And that is never a coincidence, it feels like.
Never a coincidence with those two guys. I'm going to see Justin tomorrow, I think, and I'm going to ask him about that, if he noticed that the coincidence there as well. All right, all across baseball, players are leaving their team camps for the WBC. And this week, Tim Mullins, our editor, asked us to give favorites in each bracket for the WBC and then to pick an eventual champion and a team that they beat. So I'll tell you guys, I went with a chalk. I've got Japan winning again after seeing the last WBC, and I have them beating the U.S. Clearly, the U.S. players over time become more invested in this. Jorge, who you got?
I got the DR over Team USA in the final. I just think the Dominican team, last time I didn't even make it out of pool play. From what I remember, this team I think is loaded. It's not. I think it's they're loaded. They're loaded. And what I like about this team is they actually have some like role players. It's not just straight up all stars across the board. Ahmed Rosario, Johan Rojas, Carlos Santana, O'Neal Cruz, guys that know the pecking order. Hey, I'm not going to play every day. I think last time out in 2023, that was an issue for the Dominican team. Guys are like, hey, I'm not playing. I was told I'm going to play, and that became an issue. So I think this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I think Juan Soto is going to have a huge tournament. I think the DR will win, and I mean it'll be a great final, like Team USA against the DR. I mean that'd be awesome. I mean Japan, US, Japan, DR, whatever. Pick a matchup. It'd be great for a final.
Alden, who'd you got?
I hate to agree with Jorge, but I picked the DR too. I got the DR over Team USA. I think too, this is the best pitching that they carried into the tournament. Headlined by Sandy
Right.
Alcantara and Christopher Sanchez. Their lineup is incredible. I think Team USA is going to be really good, obviously. But Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens not pitching as much as maybe we would have thought, I think can definitely hinders their chances. And look, Buster, when it comes down to in this tournament for the top teams, unfortunately, but it actually is very simple. It's how willing are your best pitchers to pitch in the biggest games, okay? Or to maybe put it more accurately, how willing are the best pitchers' teams to have them pitch in those biggest games? Japan not having Roki Sasaki, not having Shohei Ohtani, not having Yu Darvish as pitchers for this tournament compared to 2023, I think is going to hinder them. And when I look at just the totality of these rosters, when you combine, as Jorge said, the lineup from the Dominican Republic with a better pitching staff, and I will add, it was such a disappointment what the Dominican Republic did in 2023. And it was like an embarrassment for the country what happened. They're showing in 2023. I think they're going to be motivated to make that right because those players know how we can't grasp this here in the States. But it's such a big deal in the Dominican Republic. And they face that when they go back home in the off seasons. And I think they're going to be motivated to make that right.
I'm curious about how you guys feel about Skubal and Skeens limiting their roles. Because the way I felt about it, first off, I think Mark DeRosa has done an amazing job of recruiting players and getting players excited about going there. And I think Skubal and Skeens did a good job of helping to build that. But I also personally, I understand why Tarek Skubal's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. There's too much on the line for him personally this year. So I'm not bothered by the fact that he's only going to take the ball once. Jorge, what do you think?
I was shocked that Skubal even announced he was going to do this. I'm shocked he's doing it at all. So good for him because I think this tournament is great. I mean, 2023 was really caught on in this country. But this tournament matters to a lot of countries, and it has mattered for a long time to a lot of, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Japan, Venezuela. Those countries, those places care about this tournament and have cared for a long time. I love that the U.S. is finally getting on board in terms of maybe let's bring our best players and our best pitchers. But I think that's an issue for the tournament moving forward. Like the big issue is player availability, pitcher availability. Getting these guys. Can they ever get the best pitchers and the best players across the board to play? We have the insurance issue that's hampered some teams, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. I mean, Mike Trout's not in this tournament because of insurance issues. It's something that we need to talk about. Kind of figure out, hey, what's the next move here to take this tournament to the next level? And I think we're getting there. This is another step. But we just saw right now with the gold medal game in the Winter Olympics, U.S. Canada. Almost 19 million people watched that game Sunday morning East Coast time. That was the talk of the weekend. I mean, for other reasons as well, but for the on the ice, that game was awesome. And the NHL has gotten a lot of exposure to the players. They did it in the middle of the season, and a couple weeks off. Everyone takes a break, then we go back at it in the NHL season. I think in 2028, when we see baseball in the Olympics and major leaguers in the Olympics. I think after that, my prediction is we're going to see the WBC in the middle of the season when they realize that the baseball world didn't explode and combust when you take a break during the middle of the season to have major leaguers play in a tournament. I think that's what we're going to see moving forward. I think that's going to help the tournament, and I think that's going to help in terms of seeing guys like maybe not a schoolboy on a contract year, but other guys who have decided not to do it. Because there are a ton of players that said, hey, I'm not going to do this, sorry. Mostly pitchers, but even some position players.
Yeah, Alden?
I agree. I was going to make actually that very same point. Major League Baseball accommodated having a longer All-Star break, or is going to accommodate having a longer All-Star break to have guys compete in the Olympics in 2028. And I think they're going to find out that it's going to be pretty easy to do that every 3 years for the World Baseball Classic. It's not going to solve every issue. I mean, it's not going to solve the insurance issue that we have going into this year, but it's going to solve a major one for the pitching, I think. I mean, look, it's you're asking a lot, and to answer your initial question, Buster, I don't blame Paul Skeens or Tarek Skubal for limiting their usage in this tournament because they are simply a product of this system. They get paid for pitching for their major league teams, and pitchers break down, and they can't risk that. I get it. But to Jorge's point about putting this in the middle of the year, you're asking a lot of pitchers to ramp up earlier, okay? And then to pitch in the middle of March, not a spring training game with 8,000 people in the stands, but you're talking about a sold-out ballpark with country pride
Full
on
adrenaline.
the line. The adrenaline from
games.
that, yeah, and like the intensity of that, and to tap into that in early March, and then come off of that and go pitch a 6-month season, maybe a 7-month season if your team qualifies for the playoffs. That's a lot, okay? I think, again, it's not going to alleviate everything, but Jorge's absolutely right. You put this in the middle of the year when pitchers are already stretched out. Can you imagine? Maybe it won't happen, but Tarek Skubal like making full starts in a tournament like this? Probably not, but I think you would get more buy-in. I think teams would be more okay with this if it were in the middle of the year as opposed to spring training when they got to get their innings in. They gotta go step by step, and they got to be on schedule. And like Mark DeRosa has such a hard job just sort of juggling all of these pitching schedules while trying to win and getting criticized if he doesn't. I agree with Jorge too. Every step has been like a little bit more in terms of enthusiasm from players, but maybe moving into the middle of the summer might be what solves a lot of this.
So maybe the most comparable situation that I've seen to what Skubal, basing his decision on, happened in 2008 when CC Sabathia just had his number retired by the Yankees, was pitching for Cleveland. He gets traded to Milwaukee, and the Brewers ask him, because they're trying to make the playoffs for the first time in like 35 years. They ask him to pitch every fourth day. And CC agrees to do it, and his agent, Brian Peters, just went crazy. Like, what are you kidding? Come on. And he called Doug Melvin, the general manager of the Brewers at that time, and CC called him and basically chewed him out, his agent. And he said, no, I want to win for these guys. This is what I need to do. He was totally invested in those guys. But I can tell you, and CC did it down the stretch. The Brewers made the playoffs. People who I spoke to at that time, I can remember guys thought CC was crazy. Like he had so much money on the line. He wound up, in the end signing a $161 million deal with the Yankees that never would have happened if he had gotten hurt in those last month. So I totally get Tarek Skubal's got $400 million on the line. I don't blame him at all.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, now Sabathia is a legend in Milwaukee for what, 3 months, 4 months? I mean,
right. Right. Exactly. And as they say, he winds up getting his number retired with the Yankees. All right. Alden, you are our number one reporter when it comes to television issues. And the other day, the Atlanta Braves announced that they're building their own television network, Braves Vision. And there are reports that not only are they going to broadcast Braves games, but they are looking to acquire other broadcasting rights of teams in Atlanta. It's a new TBS, right? For years, the Braves and the Cubs were the two franchises that essentially had their own national networks, and now you have Braves Vision. Tell me what you've heard about this, the reverberations around the sport.
Yeah, look, it made a lot of sense. When the last 9 teams that were with Main Street Sports Group sort of got out of their contracts, and 7 of them ultimately joined Major League Baseball. The 2 teams that people were unsure about were the Angels and the Braves, and the reason for that is because they were actually very valuable commodities. They were probably the 2 most valuable commodities in Main Street Sports' portfolio. Now, before they went to the bankruptcy and all that stuff. And for the Braves, the reason for that is their territory, right? Like Buster, like you lived this, like you covered baseball during this time. Like the reason why the Braves have resonated with so many generations of baseball fans was because of their reach. Their market is so much bigger than just Atlanta. It's so much bigger than Georgia. The reason why they wanted to launch a TV network like this was because they could reach state in South Carolina and Tennessee and North Carolina. Like they have such an expanded audience because of those early TBS days that it makes a lot of sense for them to try it. And one thing that we've seen, look, the Rangers launched their own TV network too. I don't think it's been as profitable as they thought it was going to be. We'll see what happens with the Braves. But these next 3 years, 2026, 2027, and 2028, are going to be it's going to be a lot about experimentation for some teams. For other teams, it's going to be getting as much of the last vestiges of the linear cable model as possible, okay, before potentially joining Major League Baseball. They obviously want to centralize all local media rights. And look, these next 3 years are just sort of like a placeholder before that ultimately happens. Baseball, Rob Manfred wants to collect all 30 local media rights and sell them, and he thinks he's going to be able to maximize revenues because of that. I don't think they're going to get all 30 teams by the end of 2028. I don't think the Dodgers are going to go on board with that, or teams like the Mets or the Blue Jays, but they're going to come close to that, and it's going to be really interesting with the Braves. How do these next 3...
I was going to say a follow-up question. So when I saw this news, I immediately thought folks in Central Baseball have to be grinding their teeth a little bit. And it's a reminder that this is a confederacy of 30 teams, not, one well-run business from the top. 30 teams are going to do what's in their best interests. And this is the Braves doing what's in their best interest, given the national exposure they've had in the past. Yes?
Absolutely. And look, I've talked to Rob Manfred about this a handful of times. Major League Baseball's belief is that even the teams that want to go on their own or seem very hesitant to give up their rights or want to do their own thing like the Braves are eventually going to have to come around on this because the trend is the trend. And the linear cable model is drying up. And it's just a matter of sort of when it's completely going to dry up. And it's going to dry up for something faster than others. For the Marlins, it happened a lot quicker than it will for the Braves, but eventually it's going to happen for everybody. And I think just with regards to this situation, it's probably going to be an easy like 25 teams that are going to join Major League Baseball, I think, by the end of 2028. The Braves, we'll see. It's going to depend on how these next 3 years go. But if they're able to figure this out, maybe they could be a model, not for every franchise, not for most franchises, but for the teams that have a big reach, that have a big fan base like the Braves do.
All right, before you guys go, as usual, these conversations go by so fast. But before you go, I'm going to be talking with the great Charles Barkley coming up here in a moment. And one of the questions that I have for him is, who is a better group of fighters, baseball players or NBA players? Okay, if you were to rank them in terms of brawls, who would you pick, baseball players or NBA players? Jorge, we start with you.
All right, so NBA players got longer reach. Are we talking like, street fight? Are we talking like actual ring? We got rules. Like
Game's going on, brawl breaks out. Who do you not want to face?
I'm just gonna go NBA players because they're just bigger. They're just taller. Like if it's hard for some of these baseball players to even like punch these guys, in the face. Like, they're just so tall. It's like, that 5'10" guy going up against 6'10" guy.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to be very fair.
Yeah, I think the benign nature of baseball fights, or fighters sometimes might be borne out by the fact they still let the guys run in from the bullpen. Whereas in the NBA, they don't want more people getting involved. Like, they make rules against that, right? But in baseball, you can still run in from the bullpen, Alden. Who you got?
Buster, none of these people are fighters. None of these people ever want to fight. They all come out, they jaw at each other. Nobody throws a punch. Nobody wants to fight ever. Okay, the '90s are over. Having said that, you don't know how many baseball players I have met whose baseball reference page lists them at 6 feet, and then I see them in person, and they are shorter than me. Okay, there's no chance that any baseball team is going to match up with assuming the numbers are aligned, with a basketball team full of guys who are 6'6" and beyond. Yeah, come on. The answer's obvious. The NBA. Not for desire to fight, but just for height.
I should have structured
size.
the question with which group of players are better fighters. That might be more like who not a one-on-one NBA versus Major League Baseball, but who are better fighters? Basketball players, baseball players. Another round, Jorge.
Oh man, I'm with Alden. I don't think these guys are really fighters. I mean, except for like the Pistons got this guy named Isaiah Stewart who actually ran off the bench to try to fight someone on the court the other day. Yeah, that guy's a fighter. Like if you put,
he's a fighter. He looks for
I'll take
fight.
him over everybody. He wanted to fight LeBron James one time, but yeah, I'll go baseball players. I'll go baseball players are better fighters, pound for pound.
Okay.
But Buster, what is inspiring these questions?
Well,
I want to get at the root of this.
I just said I'm thinking an interesting conversation with Charles Barkley, who, as you guys know, did not shy away from physical confrontations, right, during his career. And I thought this is something that Charles, as a sports fan, he's going to want to answer that question. As you guys were talking about, different guys like Isaiah Stewart, definitely not someone you want to tangle with. I always heard from Cubs players that this particular player is someone you never want to get in a fight with, and I've never seen him in a fight. And that's Wilson Contreras. Like, they're just like, he is so strong and he would break people in half if he ever got into a fight, right?
You know, Buster, this is actually genius that you're asking Charles Barkley this, because there's no way he's going to pick baseball players over basketball players.
That would
mean he's going to have to pick basketball players of today's era, the basketball players that he continually trashes as being soft. So you're going to put him in a really tough position.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. It's always fun to catch up and kick stuff around with you.
Thanks, Buster.
Thank you.
Charles Barkley played 16 years in the NBA, and you see him on Inside the NBA. But what we've come to learn about you, Charles, is that you are a big sports fan. The other day, I saw you right after the U.S. had won the gold medal in the Olympics. You guys come on air, and there you are in a USA jersey. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me because you're that big of a sports fan.
Yeah, Buster, man, I love sports. And people ask me why I love sports. I says, well, if it wasn't for sports, all we would have is reality. And I don't mean that. I mean, like, when you're not watching sports, enjoying sports, you have to deal with the crap we call life. And life is hard. And I always want the players to always realize how lucky we are to do something stupid like play a sport. But we bring so much joy to people who are out here who got everyday problems, who have to go to work every day. I mean, like I say, we're not teachers, we're not firemen, we're not policemen, we're not somebody in the armed service. We're overpaid to play a stupid sport. And man, it just takes you away from reality. I'll never take that for granted. I'm not saying this to be humble or whatever. Man, I feel like we are the luckiest dudes in the world. I mean, think about it, Buster. Excuse me, let me stop that. They make so much money because the most money I made was $5 million, and I thought that was a lot, and it was a lot. But can you imagine some of these guys making 20, 30, 40, $50 million to throw a baseball, hit a baseball, run a football, or dunk? I mean, if you don't realize how lucky you are, but the benefit of that, we get to bring, man, I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch hockey last Sunday, and it was worth all of it. I mean, I'm like, because we had work the night before, and me and Ernie like, what time you getting up tomorrow? I'm like, I'm getting up at 8. He said, me too. And then we get to work Sunday afternoon. We're like, that was worth it. Like last year. I mean, obviously I'm caught up in the moment, but that's in the conversation of the greatest World Series ever. I mean, it was game 5, 6, and 7 were tremendous. But like, if you didn't, and I was pulling for Toronto, I want to make that clear. 'Cause that's my favorite city in the world. But man, just to sit there and watch those guys do their things, and you got a whole country rooting for Toronto, but you got to like Ohtani and Betts and Freeman and those guys.
Yeah, 100%. I want to ask you about that. I mean, you mentioned the World Series last year. What do you remember about your reaction when Miguel Rojas ties the game in the top of the ninth inning? You know, a 36-year-old backup infielder, the moment of his life, right? Hitting that home run to tie the World Series. But you were rooting for the Blue Jays. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I was devastated, to be honest with you, because you go back, they probably should have won game 6 and 7. But it's such a fine line. You know, the ball getting stuck under the outfield. I mean, Rojas getting a hit at the most improbable moment. But that's the beauty of sports. I mean, like, that guy, he's set for life. He's never going to have to pay for another drink in L.A. He's like, man, I forget the quarterback. Nick Foles. Nick Foles is never gonna have to buy a drink in Philly, especially if I say him out, because I'm a big Eagles fan. But man, that's the beauty of sports. I mean, think about this. We just removed Sam Darnold, who everybody's been trashing for the last 5 years. Like, if that doesn't make you feel good, it's something wrong with you as a fan. I mean, that kid, I talked about it. I said, you know, they've been trashing this kid for 3 or 4 or 5 years. He sucks. Then he had a great year. Then he stumbled last year in the playoffs in the last 2 games. And then they're like, well, he got to choke again in the playoffs. And him ended up winning the Super Bowl was incredible.
Yeah, it really was. And you're speaking, Sam, I'm a huge Vikings fan. I have been my whole life. And so to see him have success after everything he's been through, it was really cool. So I'm going to tap into your sports fandom and asking you this question. Where would you put Shohei Ohtani if you were to list the all-time the 3 best athletes in sports history? Who would be your top 3 athletes in sports history?
Well, I don't know if you can have 3. Number one, let's get that out the way. But when you talk about in the conversation, you know what's amazing about Ohtani, Buster, to be honest with you? If he could actually pitch on the regular, he'd move to the top of the food chain. If he was, obviously he's had the 2 surgeries and he's still doing pretty good. But if he was able to pitch and hit like he hits, he'd probably be on top of the food chain. But, you know, you talk about Tiger, you talk about Michael, you talk about Wayne Gretzky, Shohei's in that conversation. I don't discuss the Babe Ruth and Wilt Chamberlain. I never saw those guys play, so I think I'd be disingenuous. But if you go back I can say the last 30 years, you talk about Ohtani's in there with Michael and Tiger and Wayne Gretzky. Like, George Will, he wrote a great article about Michael Jordan. It was back in the 80s and 90s. He says, that guy might be better at what he does than anybody else is better at what they do in the entire world. Because, you know, like, if you're a scientist, there are a lot of great scientists. If you're a great doctor, like, there's a lot of great doctors. He says, Michael Jordan is better at what he does than anybody else. And I think you can honestly say that about Shohei right now. Like, he's the best baseball player in the world. And that's such an amazing, that is such an amazing thing to say about somebody. Like, there's a million I shouldn't say a million. There's a lot of great players. But to be better at what you do than anybody in the world is pretty a great accomplishment, man, because all the guys, there's a lot of great players. There are a lot of guys that are working hard. But when people can say, oh, yeah, he's the best at what he do, like, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's how other players feel about him. Like they fully acknowledge like he's a head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of what he can do. How did you feel? How have you felt about the pitch clock since they implemented it in baseball?
I think it's been great. I think anything you can do to speed up the game is always a good thing. And just watching from a distance, I'm a big Phillies fan. I think you know that. And just watching from a distance, like to see the game, like, yeah, 2 hours is a lot better than 2:45, 3 hours. That's going to keep everybody involved. So, yeah, I think the pitch clock has been great. Um, I always think you should keep changing because times change. We don't all have the flip phones anymore. So I think to keep up with society, and to me, that's not that's not even an inconvenience. Like, yo, man, get your ass in the batter's box. Don't go out there and adjust your gloves and move your little thing around. No, man, get in the batter's box. Because I think first of all, I think it's better for the players, but I think it's better for the fans. I think a lot of the time we forget that the fans are the most, like, we make all this money because of the fans. So I think sometimes we forget, and I understand, like it's hard work. I understand it. I'm not being stupid or selfish, but like, yo, man, if you don't realize how lucky we are to do what we do, come on, man, you need to have a serious talk with yourself.
When that shapes your perspective on load management, I know, having heard you talk about that with players and the number of games they play in the NBA these days. If you had to win one game, Charles, who would you rather have, Tarek Skubal or Paul Skeens?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I think Skubal obviously got more. He's got a little bit. Well, he got a better resume.
2 Cy Young Awards, longer track record.
Yeah. You'd have to give it to Skubal on the track record, but Skeens, man, I haven't watched the entire thing, but I watched that documentary on what he goes through to get ready. So that is good and dangerous. I always tell people because, like, you got to realize that whatever sport, how great you are, it's what you do is not who you are. Because you see a lot of athletes struggle when they retire because they put all their eggs in a basket or they don't make it. And I says, well, you have to have some common sense now. They're using you. You have to use them, whether you're getting a free education, which I think is a big deal that nobody ever talks about. We always talk about these college players, NIL and things like that. I'm like, well, listen, most of these guys have to go out and get a real job. We should be more concerned about graduation and things like that. Getting a free education is a big deal. But to answer your question, I do like Skeens, and man, let me tell you something. Wow, it's gonna be interesting when it's time to pay him. Well, it's gonna be interesting. Hey, it's gonna be interesting. It's time to play Skubal because I was paying attention to the arbitration thing. Yeah. And man, baseball, they got to address the salary situation. Like, they don't have TV deals like the NFL and the NBA. There's a huge disparity, and it's hard for players to understand, like, you know what, we got to figure out a way to what's best for the game. Like, we all want to make as much money as possible. I understand that. But at some point, you have to be like the WNBA. Like, I've had this disagreement with these. First of all, I love the WNBA. I love these women. But I hear these fools on television, which I'm one of them too, but I try to be responsible for what I talk about. It's like, I hear these guys and girls on TV talking, well, the WNBA, they got the owners by the balls and they gonna make all this money, and if they don't pay them, they shouldn't play. I says, well, hold on a second now. I said, you got to be careful, because I walked in a room with Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Larry Bird and Magic, and we still went on strike twice. I says, these are businessmen, and businessmen with all the money always win in the long run. So we always have to be careful, because if you cancel the season, it ain't going to affect the owners. So I tell my lady friends from the WNBA, I hope y'all get as much money as y'all can, but y'all got to be careful because, like I say, I walked in the room with Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan and still struck twice. I says, at some point, and the billionaires always going to win against millionaires, no matter what people think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. What advice would you give the baseball players about a salary cap, given your experience in labor situations?
Cap is it's an interesting word. I think you have to have a floor and a ceiling, because we don't want the teams at the bottom just making money. We want everybody to be competitive, but we can't just let teams outspend, because what's going to happen is the other teams, it's going to be a trickle down effect, Buster. The other team's not going to care. They're going to be like, I'm not trying to go there. And they're going to revenue share. And we just going to have a bunch of bottom feeders that are they're just minor league affiliates masquerading as Major League Baseball. So I think guys hate to hear the word cap, but you have to do something to have some form of competitive balance, because baseball probably got the worst system where these bottom feeders like, we're not, if they're going to revenue share, we're going to let the big teams win, and we just going to take their money. So I think baseball they get ready to have their coming to Jesus moment. And you got agents who don't care about anything but their players, which is their job. So I think sometimes it's up to the players to say, hey, you know what? We got to figure out because we're all eating right now. We all are eating right now, and we got to make sure everybody's eating instead of a few people.
Yeah, that's what happened in the last negotiation with the rank and file among the players outvoting the recommendation of the players' executive committee. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, when you played, you were obviously, I've told you before, I covered you in college, watched you throughout the NBA. You were never afraid of physical play, or, if some brawl broke out, you'd be in the middle of that. So it's within that vein that I want to ask you this question. As a sports fan, when you've seen players play, we know hockey players are the best fighters, right? Who are better fighters, NBA players or baseball players?
Neither one of them can fight, Buster. Neither one of them can fight. Baseball players, I tell you one thing that annoys me about baseball, when two outfielders run into each other and they both look like they're dead, that tells me right there they can't fight. Like, every time something happens in the outfield and they run into each other, one of them stays down like he's dead. I say, yo, man, get up. That wasn't even that hard of a contact. But I don't think either one of us can fight. Obviously, there are a couple exceptions, but most NBA players can't fight. They can't fight. Because, first of all, you know why? Because it's dangerous. The one thing you don't want to do is get hit by no big old dude. That don't make no sense whatsoever. A lot of these guys are big and strong, and if they were to hit you the right way, something bad can really happen. But to honestly answer your question, baseball players can't fight and basketball players can't fight.
Okay. I knew you would have thoughts on that for sure. All right, Charles, thanks for your time. This is so much fun. I appreciate it.
Hey, Buster, you do a terrific job. I can't wait for baseball to start. Number one, we know spring and summer is coming when baseball. I went out to the Cubs training camp last week with my boy Sutcliffe. I cannot wait, man. Keep up the great work, too.
Thanks, Charles.
Houston Astros.
The Houston Astros stranglehold of the American League West came to an end in 2025 when they finished second in the division, 3 games behind the Mariners.
Newcomers.
Mike Burrows, a talented young pitcher at a 3.94 ERA in 23 games with the Pirates last season, was added in a deal with Pittsburgh. The Astros swapped for Nick Allen as a backup infielder and Joey Loperfido, an outfielder.
Reality injection.
The Astros were really hurt by injuries last year. Yordan Alvarez, one of the team's few left-handed hitters, played in only 48 games, and the Astros need him to get back to anchoring the lineup. And they need more from third baseman Carlos Correa and catcher Yainer Diaz. General Manager Dana Brown and Manager Joe Espada are each entering the last year of their contracts. So for Houston, this could be a pivotal season.
Win projections.
I'm the most optimistic about the Astros, who have a legit ace in Hunter Brown. I say 86 wins. But Pacoda says 84.4 wins. Hembo's predicting 82. Sarah Lang says 83.
Miami Marlins.
The Marlins were one of the major surprise teams last year, going 79-83 and finishing ahead of Atlanta in the National League East.
Newcomers.
A lot of the Marlins offseason was about offloading veterans for young talent as Miami continued its rebuilding. Peter Benedict swapped Ryan Weathers to the Yankees after trading Edward Cabrera to the Cubs. Miami signed Pete Fairbanks and Christopher Morel.
Reality injection.
Look, it's the National League East, and the Marlins look short on pitching, which is why they could continue the overhaul and perhaps consider trading Sandy Alcantara. The franchise is building a strong base of talent, but it could take a step back in the standings this year.
Win projections.
Sarah Langs pegs the Marlins for 73 wins. Hembo says 74, the same as Pacoda. You know what? I'll say 74 as well.
Alrighty, Buster. Bleacher Tweets for a Friday. You can see me here. I'm down in my little tiny box in the corner of the screen. That's okay. No big deal. Let's hear from Alex from Westfield, New Jersey. He writes in, I'm excited about Bo Bichette. This is a Mets fan writing in. But he has never played third base, and considering the money we gave him, shouldn't we have been in on Alex Bregman? Alex Bregman has a better career average, on base percentage, OPS slightly above in OPS plus. Alex wants to know why they didn't go after Alex Bregman if they have a whole third base. But I guess that was before the Francisco Lindor injury.
Well, and also Kyle Tucker, right? I mean, they had their sights set on Kyle Tucker, and they had taken a run at Kyle Schwarber. And then Steve Cohen told the story in the first time he met with the media this spring that he was disappointed when they didn't sign Tucker. It felt like that the Mets thought they were going to get him. They didn't. And then according to Cohen, they got a call from the agent for Bo Bichette, and they come up with a deal within 24 hours. And look, he's kind of considering the fact that David Stearns, head of baseball ops for the Mets, talked about run prevention at the beginning of the winter. Bo Bichette is definitely, he's not a perfect fit. Yes, third base is going to be a concern. You know, I talked to evaluators who've seen him play, and they say when he played shortstop, you would not see him dive after balls, which is something you have to do on a regular basis when you're playing third base. And there are questions about his arms. There are no questions about whether or not he's going to hit. Like, there's an expectation that he could really be a great guy behind Juan Soto in that Mets lineup.
Buster, we've had a lot of people writing in about, so we played, I'm going to botch his name, Bill Mazeroski, right? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Bill Mazeroski passed last week, and we played the clip of his game-winning World Series Game 7 walk-off home run from 1960. You and Tim declared it the greatest World Series game ever.
Tim did.
Tim did. Okay. A lot of people disputing it. Tom writes in, he's saying, I'm surprised Game 7 of the 2016 World Series wasn't mentioned. And that has been hopped around, as we talked about Game 7 of the 25 series. Danny Thomas also weighed in, chiming in on the 91 World Series too. So where does that game stand for you? I mean, that sounds like a solid top 3 there, maybe top 4 that we're talking about.
Yeah. I still think David Freese's moment in 2011, Game 6, like that was an amazing game. I mean, the swings of that game, that was crazy. So I think David Freese's game-tying hit in 2011, what he did in that game, that to me is the biggest moment in baseball history. That it's above Mazeroski. Maybe it's because the era, thinking back in 1960, they were just 16 teams where, I just think the circumstances were different for David Freese. So he would be my pick.
There you go. Much discussion. BleacherTweets@gmail.com. Last one here. Bill Doros. Bill's been emailing in about, you keep saying Shohei Ohtani, best baseball player that we've ever seen, basically. He is really banging the drum on great hitters and great defenders, looking at guys who've won a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger in the same season. He pulled a couple here, Lou Whitaker, Barry Bonds, Pudge Rodriguez, Nolan Arenado. But he's saying, like, hey, Shohei, not the best to ever do it. What about his teammate Mookie Betts, who excels at the plate and on defense. What do you think of that argument that Bill's floating?
Mookie Betts doesn't pitch. Right? Nolan Arenado never pitched. If you ask Mookie Betts who's the greatest player in baseball, he would look at you like you have three heads. He'd be like, yeah, that guy, Shohei. He's a dominant pitcher. He's a dominant hitter. He went 50-50 for God's sake, and he's a great pitcher. I don't think it's close. I think he's the greatest player we've ever seen. That's why I was curious to hear Charles Barkley's opinion on it.
He's banging the drum here like, hey, he doesn't have that gold glove, but I think being a dominant pitcher more than shores up the fact that you are pretty good on defense, because that is the
right,
linchpin
exactly.
of the
Here's the other thing,
operation.
too, is that just based on everything here about Shohei, if Shohei decided today that he wanted to play in the outfield, I'm pretty confident if he put his mind to it, he'd win a gold glove. Like, he's that good of an athlete. He's one of the fastest players on the Dodgers, even in his early 30s.
He'd be a gold glove first baseman, I think.
Right.
All right, there you go, Bill. Bill's written a couple times, so I want to get to him. All right, thanks, everyone. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for watching. It's been a good first week of shows, Buster, on YouTube here. Really appreciate people tuning in and writing in and letting us know how they feel about the new product. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Buster.
and we continue to get feedback, I hope, as we go along here. We're trying to hone things, trying to get things in order, getting great guests, right? I mean, you got to start with that, with people like Aaron Boone, people like Charles Barkley, and our roundtable of regulars. It's always a lot of fun here. So thank you so much. And Taylor, thanks to you.
Thank you, Buster. We're grinding over here, baby. We're just getting started. We're like 3 episodes deep on like 120. I talked about it to someone in the office today. So let's not think about that number right now.
I know, right? Exactly. Well, yeah, thanks to Taylor today. Thanks to Jorge. And thanks to Alden, Charles Barkley. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. And remember, hate and inequality based on skin color is something we need to fight against every single day.